I beat him by just pointing out who I am and who he is and what we're for and what he's against. This guy is a divider in chief. This guy is acting with racist policies. This guy is moving to foment hate, to split. That's the only way he can sustain himself.
Nothing about him worries you?
Oh, yeah, well, sure it worries me in the sense that I'm looking forward to this, man. You walk behind me in a debate. Come here, man.
Joe Biden stepping up his attacks on President Trump in a new interview as his lead diminishes in post-debate polling. The former vice president is facing pressure to embrace an increasingly liberal agenda in the Democratic Party. Lauren Claffey, former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security, joins us, along with Zach Friend, former spokesperson for President Obama's 2008 campaign. Thanks, both of you, for being part of our political panel this morning. Zach, it already seems that Joe Biden has embraced more liberal positions. He always supported the Hyde Amendment, for instance, which restricts federal funding for abortion. Now he says he no longer supports the Hyde Amendment. Is Joe Biden becoming more liberal as a result of his fellow candidates?
I do think that the base has definitely moved pretty far to the left since the 2008 election. But overall, I do think that the vice president does have a pretty clear lane here within this election. Over half of all of Democratic primary voters self-identify as either conservative or moderate. And I will say that this election will be won through the industrial Midwest, states that he does very well in. So I think that if he maintains that lane of the center-left, I think he does have a pretty strong chance to actually pull through in this election.
So you're suggesting that his banking to the left, if that's what you want to call it, is still keeping him in the middle of the Democratic field?
Well, I think that overall, actually, his positions really are in the middle of the Democratic field. He has not embraced some of the more liberal positions on health care or even on some of the income redistribution proposals that have been proposed by some of his colleagues. He's had a more traditional approach on infrastructure, health care, and wages that I think that actually do play pretty well in a number of these early contests and as well in the general election. All
right. So, Lauren, if that's the case, why do his numbers seem to be shrinking in the polls?
Yeah, Joe Biden is really doubling down on this this general election strategy that because he is center left, he is going to be the best one to win the general election. The problem is that he's ignoring the fact that he's got to get through a primary right now. And what he's good at and where his base of support is with African Americans and also blue collar Democratic voters that are on the more moderate realm. But the problem is that all of the primary voters, for the most part, he's great with people over 50 in those two blocks that I said. But he's not great with younger voters. And younger voters are highly energized and very active in the primary right now, and they're split amongst the other Democratic forerunners. So as people become more aware of the alternatives to Joe Biden, he came in with great name ID and lots of fuzzy feelings because of his role in the Obama administration as vice president. But as people get to know the other alternatives, all of a sudden they're looking at them and thinking, well, Joe Biden's great, but here's somebody over here that I think I might like a little bit better. So they're kind of doing a pro-con list with him right now, and he is the one to beat, and they're kind of looking the other way.
But Lauren, the most recent Fox News polling suggested that were it a two-man race, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, that Biden would win. Do you think that he is the biggest threat to the sitting president?
I think it's too early to tell that. I think that part of that is because of name ID, and part of that is because people are just trying to figure out, where they stand on President Trump at the given moment. I think when you look at the averages of the polling, that's not necessarily the case in every instance.
Listen to how Joe Biden handles the suggestion that maybe he should embrace more liberal positions. Here he is talking about Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Listen.
I think Ocasio-Cortez is a brilliant, bright woman, but she won a primary. In the general election fights, who won? Mainstream Democrats who are very progressive on social issues and very strong on education, health care. Look, it's center-left. That's where I am. Where it's not is way left. Now, look, but that's what we can find out.
Zach, very quickly, how did he handle that answer?
I think he's right. I think what plays in Brooklyn doesn't necessarily play in Philly or in Michigan or a number of other locations that are key to the general election.
All right. And Lauren?
Yeah, he's really doubling down on this moderate thing. I mean, he's got to win Iowa and South Carolina, right? But we're still way out from the first election. So I think that he's going to double down on this rhetoric that he's the one to beat President Trump and hope that carries him through the primary.
Lauren Claffey and Zach Friend, thanks both of you for being on our political panel this morning.